The stage is now set for a general election season like no other, with the basic principles of the republic on the line. A name more famous for decades and decades than Nikki Haley in Republican circles came out swinging directly at the presumptive Republican nominee Donald Trump early this morning. In a post, Liz Cheney saying this, quote, "The GOP has chosen. They will nominate a man who attempted to overturn an election and seize power. We have 8 months to save our republic and ensure that Donald Trump is never anywhere near the Oval Office again." And then Liz Cheney sent people to this video originally released in May. Watch.
Donald Trump is the only president in American history who has refused to guarantee the peaceful transfer of power.
Joe Biden,
he lost the election and he knew it.
To become the president.
He betrayed millions of Americans by telling them the election was stolen.
Stop the steal.
He ignored the rulings of dozens of courts. Rather than accept his defeat, he mobilized a mob to come to Washington and march on the Capitol. Then he watched on television while the mob attacked law enforcement, invaded the Capitol, and hunted the vice president. He refused for 3 hours to tell the mob to leave. There has never been a greater dereliction of duty by any president. Trump was warned repeatedly that his plans for January 6th were illegal. He didn't care, and today he celebrates those who attacked our Capitol. Donald Trump has proven he is unfit for office. Donald Trump is a risk America can never take again.
The Great Task is responsible for the content of this advertising.
This is particularly notable heading into another election after the political harm that Liz Cheney and Chairman Benny Thompson and the entire January 6th Select Committee inflicted politically on the Republican brand ahead of the 2022 midterms. And let us just say, this could be interesting. Someone whose last name is synonymous with the highest echelons of executive power on the right, impeaching the very fitness of a member of her own party this early in a general election, this loudly and this publicly, has not happened before. And her clarion call stands in stunning contrast to the rest of the party in which she served. Nikki Haley winning in just 2 places during the stage of the Republican primary, where it was just Nikki Haley against Donald Trump, saying she'll support the nominee. Mitch McConnell endorsing Donald Trump today, glossing over, or just swallowing, I guess, the racist attacks Donald Trump made over and over again against his wife, to say nothing of the fact that Trump threatened McConnell himself, saying McConnell had a, quote, death wish because he had the audacity to pass a bill to keep the government functioning. Donald Trump's grip on the party is not possible without those Republican leaders abdicating their duty, to say nothing of their dignity, over and over and over and over, and predictably over and over and over again. All for a person that they know perfectly well is unfit to serve. In the apocalyptic alternate reality Trump is selling on the stump to Republican voters. They knew that's a lie, too. In his victory speech, what the New York Times called a, quote, dark vision, Trump peddled an Earth 2, devoid of facts, not remotely rooted in modern-day realities. He claimed, as he does practically every day, that the United States justice system was being weaponized against him, even though the 91 felony counts he faces were brought by independent prosecutors and approved by juries of his peers. Trump claimed that the migrants crossing the southern border are violent criminals, even though officials in his own administration said that most migrants are fleeing poverty and violence. And, of course, there's the big lie that he peddles all the time when he rails against the voting system, even though he just won more than a dozen primaries and, as far as we know, hasn't contested any of those results so far. So this is what the Republican Party has signed up for, again. The rest of us, including millions of American voters, still have a chance to weigh in. It's where we start today with some of our most favorite experts and friends. Former Trump White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Matthews is here. She resigned from the Trump White House on the evening of January 6, 2021. She went on to testify publicly before the January 6 Select Committee. Also joining us, former U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor under President Barack Obama, Ben Rhodes, is here. And with me at the table, former Republican Congressman David Jolly. Ben Rhodes, I start with you. It's nice to see you, my friend. This was such a bizarre, in some ways a sad way to wake up. Mitch McConnell rolling over and endorsing Trump after referring him criminally to the Justice Department for inciting the violence on January 6th. And then just endorsing him. He didn't have to. The guy's retired. He threatened his life. He threatened his wife's security with his racist attacks against her. But there he was today with an endorsement.
Yeah, there's nothing surprising about it. I mean, this has now happened 3 cycles in a row, 2016, 2020, 2024. Everybody, with some exceptions, like Liz Cheney, but frankly, I think what's striking is how few exceptions there are. The party leadership has rolled over. And let's not forget, Nicolle, that Mitch McConnell has repeatedly done this when he actually could have done things to avert these outcomes. You know, in 2016, when he was warned about Russian interference in the election, he tried to bury that. Most notably, after January 6th, if he had helped support impeachment in the Senate after the House impeached Donald Trump could not have been running for president again. So within days of a mob literally threatening the lives of Mitch McConnell and his colleagues, he faced a very fateful choice. If he had supported impeachment and tried to put his power behind that, Donald Trump would have been barred from ever seeking the presidency again. So that was really the defining choice for him. And he made, obviously, the choice of political expediency and survival within the Republican Party rather than putting any other interest forward. And so it's very clarified now. Donald Trump's hold on the Republican Party today is actually stronger than it was in 2016 or even in 2020. Yeah. Because he's now turned the party into a wholly owned subsidiary of his own ambitions. Everybody understands that they're going to have to fall in line. And even if that means sacrificing American interests, American allies, Ukraine, and above all, American democracy, that doesn't matter to them. And that's why it's going to take a pretty broad coalition of people pushing against that. It's not just something Joe Biden is going to do on his own for a lot of reasons. It's going to have to be a large constellation of Americans coming together and saying, this is a risk we cannot take. A second Trump term would be much more dangerous and destabilizing than even the first Trump term, because he's coming back for vengeance, and he's coming back with an extreme group of people around him and a plan to dismantle democracy. And that's what this election is going to be about.
Sarah, you've talked about this publicly. John Kelly has talked about serving as a bit of a guardrail around the time that Trump was tweeting about Little Rocket Man on an issue as dire as nuclear war with North Korea. Jim Mattis quits over cause, over Trump's decisions and jarring moves in the Middle East. John Bolton talked about Trump wanting to have the Taliban at Camp David on 9/11. Former Republican Senator Bob Corker wanted to actually limit an American president's nuclear capabilities because of Trump. He called the West Wing either romper room or daycare. I forget the illustrative adjective. Republicans who bore witness to Trump's lack of fitness some of them have come out and talked about that. Your warning is different, though. Your warning is that a second term would be worse. Explain.
Well, I think that in the first term, you had people of good character like John Kelly, Jim Mattis, John Bolton, the list goes on, who weren't enabling him. They were pushing back on Trump's worst instincts. But we've seen that Trump has said that in a second term, he wants to wipe out some of these government agencies and install Trump loyalists who will carry out every demand of his. That means this will be filled with yes men and women who will not push back on him, and they're going to be sycophants. And so that is concerning to me, that we would have a government staffed of people like that, not people of good character, because competency and experience would not matter. It would just be about loyalty to Trump.